Hi folks, thank you so much for joining us for the Virtual Room Show 2022. I'm excited to be here. Thank you so much for including me, Denise. My name is Anne-Marie Cooper. I live in Bellingham, Washington, where I am a potter and a gallerist. I own Good Earth Pottery, which is a local gallery that's been here since 1969, which is just amazing to me. I was hired in 2009 as an employee. Sales and marketing was my niche at the time. Clay pretty much took over my life shortly thereafter. In 2016, I became co-owner. In 2019, I became full owner, at which point I decided to broaden the scope of the gallery to include national artists as well as local artists. So we have over 35 artists represented on a regular basis, and then I have several calls for entry per year and other guest featured artists. If you're interested in calls for entry, there are two up on the website right now, goodearthpots.com. Just tap on calls for entries, you can read all about it. But today I'm here mostly to talk about my work because before I was a gallery owner, I was a potter, and I still am a potter, and it's really important to me that I get into my studio and make things. This is what I do. I am a hand builder. I work mostly in coils built in press molds. And I prefer to finish my work in atmospheric fired kilns. Right now I am working exclusively in soda, but very soon I'll be returning to my first love, which is wood firing. Some friends and I are building a wood kiln, which we hope to start firing in May. I'm really excited for that to happen. So these are some of the things, not coil built, slab built owls. These pots here are things that are going to be for sale this week as part of the room show. And this video, the rest of this video, I will do a little demonstration to show you how I make my coil work. And when the videos are over, you'll get to join Amy Song and myself virtually in our actual Ensika hotel room because we will be present at the conference. Yeah, and we'll answer any questions that you have about our processes or gallery life, whatever. Yeah, so looking forward to chatting with you. Thanks for joining us. On to the demos. Okay, so as I said, I work in coils. I hand roll all my coils and I build them inside of a press mold form. So my press mold forms are generally like this, made out of bisque or made out of plaster. Bisque and plaster are better because they're porous. And the porosity means that it helps them dry faster and it also helps them release from the form. If you find a form that you really like and you want to recreate for your purpose, you can use it. But if it's plastic or if it's metal, it's not porous, you need to put a liner in it, like paper, plastic wrap. Spray it with cooking spray or WD-40 so that it will release from the form. The problem I've encountered in doing those sorts of things, like WD-40 or olive oil spray is what I usually use, or canola oil spray, it's slippery. So you can be working away and all of a sudden you lose control of it and it goes away. So my go-to default is bisque or plaster. So I spend my days working in my studio, hand rolling my coils. And I choose to hand roll instead of extrude because it gives me control over how thick the coils are, how flat they are, how consistent they are. They also just form a tighter coil. I just like the quality of the coil better. That's not to say that it's wrong to use an extruder because I think some people do and they prefer that. I personally prefer to just roll it myself. So I often do, you know, your standard spiral. When I started out, all of my work was very much made out of spirals. Recently, I have really begun to enjoy doing just lines, curved lines, straight lines, wavy lines. I use cookie cutters to cut out really thin little slabs, like with these flowers. Cookie cutters, or I just draw a design out and then cut them out really thin and put them in. So here's my flower cookie cutter. And it does need to be thin because I do I do end up with a pretty thick bowl with this process, so I tried to make the pieces as small as I can. You see that? This one got a little squished. Sometimes I do a flat slab on the bottom of a bowl. Sometimes I make designs. It just kind of depends on my mood, to be perfectly honest with you. I have less cracking in the bottom when I use a slab as opposed to doing a design. Cracking is bad. It's really frustrating to go through a really long project and have it crack at the end. But it happens even after all these years. It's not a fast process, shall I say. I don't know how interesting it is to watch on and on and on. It's just a lot of rolling. And usually I stand while I work, so I'm not, but for the sake of the camera angle, I am sitting today. So I used my little flower here. I'm going to put this in the bottom of the bowl. A little leaf. Because that will make the bottom of the bowl pretty. So I did start out, when I started taking pottery classes, I started out on the wheel. And I enjoyed it. Struggled, but I enjoyed it. I went out and bought myself a wheel. Working in a pottery gallery has been really handy for me because I got my first pottery wheel from one of the potters that sold his work in the gallery. And then I got my first, actually both of my electric kilns that I own, I also purchased from a potter that sells her work at Good Earth Pottery. So it's been really convenient in many ways and helpful to be part of this gallery, having such a wonderful community of artists around with resources and willingness to help and things to get rid of. So it all worked out really well for me. So I started out throwing on the wheel, but then I took a workshop from an artist who I really admired her work, who sold her work with us. Again, Good Earth Pottery connection. Her name is Patricia Morse, and she was really well known, is really well known for her coil work. And I just always loved the texture of it, the designs that she came up with, and she decided to offer a little private workshop at her home on Veterans Day in 2011. I remember exactly when it was because it was life-changing for me. There were 3 of us who worked at Good Earth who decided to take this workshop from Pat, and I immediately clicked with the coil building process. I loved it. I made the world's tiniest coils on my first project. It took a really long time. The other 2 ladies were eating lunch while I was finishing my first project, but it felt right for me. And then I was working at home in my own little kitchen space for a while, and I started, I just kept working with the coil technique. And then I made an owl. I used the coil to draw an owl, and that was the moment that I really knew I had found the way I wanted to work with clay. So from then on, I only did coil building and a little slab work, but pretty much only coil building. I sold my pottery wheel, so I wasn't using it anymore, and just dove in headfirst to the coils. So you can see I'm making a little design down there with the flower and the leaves and some coils. But yeah, and then I just ran with it. The important thing to me once I learned the technique from Pat was that I wanted to be sure that I wasn't just recreating her work, because that is an issue so often from the people that we learn from. So it was when I drew the owl for the first time with the coils that I felt like I found my voice in how to use the coil work and turn it into something of my own. And I ran with it. So always talk about how Pat passed the coil torch to me because she retired shortly after teaching that workshop. And I'm thankful every day that she offered that workshop, because I don't know what my life would have been like if I hadn't discovered coils. I mean, I'd probably still be throwing, but I don't know, this just feels like me. So you can see there's more going on in there. I just roll and I place and I push down to try to give it sort of that, to give it those curves and those divots. I've really been doing a lot more of that lately. Really emphasizing the curves, the ripples, the striations. So here it is at the moment. I am going to speed this up. I'm going to pause and I'm going to put it on time lapse so we get a little faster, because this bowl, to make this bowl would take me well longer than the 20 minutes allotted for this video slot. So I will do a time lapse and then I will come back a little bit later and show you what it looks like when it releases from the form. So thank you so much again for joining us for the room show. Yeah, I'll be back soon. Now that it's out, I take my damp sponge and smooth any little crackly bits. I kind of over smoothed the bottom one, so I'll take my little stick here, go in and refine that. There's the bowl. I'm going to trim the edge. It's a little softer than I normally would release it from the mold. It makes it pretty easy for trimming off the excess part. I like to leave the edge more scalloped a lot to follow the coil patterns. It's more of an organic finish. It feels more natural than cutting off a straight edge to match the mold form. I love mud tool sponges. They're my favorite. I'm not paid to say this. I just love them because they're perfect for getting in there into those little spots. And again, it works a little better if it's a little stiffer. And there you have it. That is how I make a coil bowl. I hope you enjoyed the demonstration. Here it is one more time. Needs a little finishing work still, but pretty fun. I like the sense of movement. It makes me happy. If you're interested in purchasing any of my work, I have my latest batch of soda-fired work available now on goodearthpots.com in the online gallery under Anne Marie Cooper. I also invite you to follow along with me on Instagram. I have my personal studio Instagram is at AnnieOClay, and I have my gallery Instagram, which is at Good Earth Pottery. And I try to keep the content different. The gallery is very gallery oriented towards all the things happening there. And Annie O'Clay is my personal page where you can see what's going on in my studio with a little gallery crossover now and then because it's bound to happen. So thank you so much for attending, and I look forward to chatting with you in the Zoom Q&A. Take care.